of the presenter, the speaker of this technical meeting, Dr. Eminue Oboho, a geoscientist of note that grew all the way from here into the academia and then eventually into UK, where he's currently practicing as a consultant. I want to welcome the erudite president of NAPE, Madam Patricia Uchugo F. NAPE, for having time to participate in this technical meeting. We welcome you, Madam, to this technical meeting. And on behalf of your Calabar chapter, we are elated that you are here with us. We also welcome other members of NAPE who are connecting to this webinar. We have the president-elect of NAPE, Dr. James Edet, fellow of NAPE. He has just joined us. We have the publicity secretary of NAPE, Tobusin Afolayan, and we have other members of NAPE that are still streaming in now. And so we all welcome you as we progress in this technical presentation. We also have on the platform the chapter exco of NAPE that are also streaming in and connecting to this presentation. We want, at this point, we want to have a minute silence in honor of the departed Professor Sunday Williamson Peters, F. NAPE, and awardee of Edward Adams and a fellow of African Academy of Science, fellow of Academy of Science. He was a key player in the chapter, and he left this world on 20th of July, 2021. And so at this time, I want the House and the NAPE community and other members and non-members that are connected to this to observe a minute silence in honor of S.W. Peters, Professor of Petroleum Geology. May his brilliant soul rest in perfect peace.
Amen.
Amen.
At this point, we want to have this occasion opened by a short speech by the president of NAPE, Madam Patricia Uchugo F. NAPE. Madam, please, over to you.
Yeah, good morning, Uyo Calabar chapter. Good morning, NAPE members. It is absolutely my delight and pleasure to be part of today's event on climate change impacts, looking at it from a geotechnical perspective in managing and our strategy for critical infrastructures of the oil and gas sector. I believe this is a very, very timely topic, and I'm delighted that you have all tuned in to be part of this. As usual, NAPE is all about learning, relearning, and unlearning the things that we need to, so that we can flow into the new normal of the oil and gas world, and so we can flourish. And with that said, I wish you a very, very, what's the word? A very interesting time, and I hope it's enriching. It's also enriching. I thank you, and I give this back to the coordinator.
Thank you very much, Madam. A huge applause to you. Thank you for all the support to the chapter. Thank you for all your involvement in the demise of Professor Peters. We always stand behind you to back you up as we drive NAPE to the next level. Thank you very much. At this point, I want to hand over the control and the moderation to the moderator of the day, Dr. Harry. Dr. Harry, can you take over over the moderation of today's technical meeting?
Yeah, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I want to thank my president once again, and other NAPE executives on board. Thank you so much for your time. I also want to welcome every other person on board, and especially also the host, Dr. Oboho Eminue, who will be talking to us on climate change impact, a geotechnical perspective on management strategy of critical infrastructures of oil and gas industry. Now, as a matter of fact, the chairman of this occasion will be joining us later in the person of Professor Odom. And so we look forward to hearing from him sometime, later in the day. So without much ado, I would like to invite Abraham, Dr. Abraham, to take the safety briefing before we continue. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Dr. Ari, I need to interject here. The chairman of this event from the NAPE hand is actually Dr. James Edets, and he should be giving the opening address immediately after the president. Before you start, please.
Sorry. I'm sorry about that oversight.
All right.
Please, is he on board?
Yes, he's on board.
He's online.
You're welcome, sir. You're welcome. So sorry for that oversight. So I'd like to welcome President-elect Dr. James Edet to give the opening remark before we go on. Thank you. So sorry about that oversight. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Harry. Thank you very much. And on behalf of the president of NAPE, Madam Patricia Ochobu, all the EXCO members of NAPE, our erudite fellows, and the entire membership of NAPE. Thank you for having me on this program.
So is it possible for you to go
very
upload
emotional
your video, please? Better.
I'm actually in transit, so
oh, sorry, no problem.
I'm just trying to be sure that this. So sorry about that.
Okay,
no problem.
Anyway, as it may, as I have said, it's usually, well, this particular day is a very emotional day for me. And I thank the speaker, Dr. Oboho Eminue, for having taken time out to come for this presentation in honor of our departed mentor, friend, a stalwart in geosciences, a member of NAPE, a fellow of NAPE, and a fellow of the Academy of Science. And in fact, his accolades are impeccable. I said it's an emotional time for me because I hardly speak about it. Since I got to meet Professor S.W. Peters back in 1982, he has been a mentor to me. In fact, when I left the oil and gas industry for the first time and went back to the university, he took me in and gave me an assistantship at the University of Calabar. And at the time, there was nothing like palynology. We only had snippets of it. And he put me through all of that. And it culminated in my going to the UK. And all of this is because of him. And I did my PhD in the UK under his close supervision. So I thank the departed S.W. Peters for all that I have been today. And I am extremely delighted that Dr. Oboho Eminue has come up with this topic for discussion. And it is a very timely topic, I would say, because today, when you think about what the climate is doing, it's not like 30, 50 years ago when we used to know that we had 4 seasons. Today, we don't know what seasons we have. And these tell a lot on our infrastructure, where they are located, what's happening to them, how they are being eroded, and the stability and all other kinds of things, erosion and so on and so forth. So we need to know these things, and it is very timely, and I think our guest speaker is going to do great justice. And like the president has said, we are here to learn things, unlearn the ones that we need to unlearn. And I hope that we all leave this place a lot wiser and more informed. And let me thank the guest speaker once again for coming up with this topic. And I hope we'll all benefit in one way or the other. Thank you and welcome to this webinar. Harry, over to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, my PE, and thank you so much, every other executive present in this meeting. So we'll just go swiftly into the safety briefing and then do a citation of Oboho before he starts the meeting. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Once again, to this presentation from Calabar chapter. Good morning, Madam President, Mrs. Patricia Ochobu, our President-elect, Dr. James Edet, the Executive Committee, all members of NAPE. Good morning, everyone. Some few minutes of safety tips as we go into this presentation. Please, we want to remind everyone to keep the mask on because the Delta variant is real. The safest thing would have been to be vaccinated, the first one and the second one. But keep the mask on, observe social distancing, the regular washing of hands deliberately, and all that, because the Delta variant of this virus is on. We encourage everyone to deliberately observe these procedures, so that we will be able to stay safe. Even from wherever we are, please observe these protocols for COVID-19. Once again, thank you everyone for coming on board for this presentation. Thank Dr. Oboho Eminue, the guest presenter today. We hope everyone will, as the president have just observed, leave this presentation much more enlightened on the topic in question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abraham. And I'd like to read the citation of our speaker today before he starts the presentation. Oboho Eminue is an experienced geotechnical engineer with over 15 years career in geological and geotechnical consultancy and development, providing intelligent geodata and informed solutions on 21st century constructions, including roads, railways, underground tunnels, flood defenses, airfield, offshore and onshore wind farms, dockyards, jetties, both in Nigeria and overseas. He's a member of the Geological Society of London, British Geotechnical Association, and Nigerian Mining and Geosciences Society. Dr. Ball holds a PhD in geotechnical engineering from Newcastle University and both MSc Engineering Geology and Hydrogeology and BSc Geology from the University of Calabar. Oboho currently practices in United Kingdom as a researcher and consultant in geotechnical infrastructure, focusing on engineering impacts of climate change and development of green infrastructure. On this note, I'd like to specially welcome our guest speaker for today, Dr. Oboho Eminue. You're welcome.
You're welcome, sir.
You can share your screen and start. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harry Rana. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for having me. Once again, let me appreciate our lady, Mrs. Patricia. Ladies first, we always say. Africanism cannot do that. And then our chairman. I'm not really very sure that I've met him before, but I appreciate the emphasis you have made about this topic. Thank you, Dr. Eker Akban, my very respected senior professional colleague who had to draft me into this. Honestly, as a privilege, I owe this kind of engagement. I feel honored. Thank you very much. Let me minimize so that I can see my screen very well. Yeah, so I'm going to put it in a slide mode. Yeah, so we're going to be looking at this. Let it be kind of a discussion engagement rather than a lecture, because I appreciate the fact I have very senior and more experienced practitioners here, irrespective, and this is a professional forum, so we'll engage as we go along. So yeah, there are never any better time to discuss this topic, climate change impact. It's become a change driver in this war. Yeah, irrespective of COVID, pandemic, which have thrown the world off balance, but this climate change is a creeping thing. You can imagine how huge it's going to affect the world if it continues unchecked. Please, is everybody seeing my slide?
Yes.
Yeah. We are seeing your slide.
Okay, so yeah, so the European environment has this to say a lot remains unknown, but better understanding of the dynamics between soil atmosphere interaction is a way to go for implementing of a sustainable solution for this climate for impact generally. So we're looking at a few things here. Introduction, the oil and gas handling facility. Yeah, I'm not an expert in that, so I just know the geotechnical part of things. But so we're going to really focus on the geotechnical aspects as it relates to climate change, and then the industry of oil and gas. And then we're going to be looking at for of soil mechanics, particularly unsaturated soil mechanic behavior. And then we'll make a conclusion, and we hope that every other person can make a contribution. So introduction, oil and gas industry, as we know, of course, this plays a very huge part in driving the world energy and chemical supply. But essentially the operations and the processes in this sector involve construction of a large number of various kind of civil engineering structures in diverse geological environment. Usually the structures have long life asset between 20 and 100 years. So you can imagine that you will expect their performance to be efficient and effective to support the process and the production of the industry. So the assets are, of course, building an environment, so they are susceptible to climate-driven deterioration process and loading as far as they are founded on this geological material. So we are not generally going to be talking about the whole perspective of climate change, but focus on the geotechnical aspect, as the topic already says. So essentially, failure of these structures will result, of course, in very serious environmental disaster, pollution, And you can imagine what kind of community and social problem that we have, apart from the risk on global shortage in global energy supply. So what can we do? We are the geotechnical engineers. We respect and we'll give credence to you guys who are mostly the drivers of the oil and gas industry. But we are here to support whatever changes that is necessary, I mean, to sustain the structures which facilitate oil and gas handling. So essentially, the gas are active in providing sustainable solutions to the impact of climate change on foundations, earthworks, and slopes. So let's see oil and gas facilities here. I know you guys are very familiar with this. You've gone around this a bit, from the upstream to the downstream. The chain is shown here in the oil extraction. All of them involve construction that transfers the load onto the ground. Offshore on the seabed, and then onshore land-based structure directly, which is going to be our main emphasis of this discussion. Mostly transportation and storage, transportation involving roads and rails in some advanced climb, and underground storages and overland storages, buildings, and all of you all are interconnected. And you can imagine, if anything goes wrong with any of them, that spells a big problem to the operation of the industry. So here we are. What is the concern of geotechnics in this matter? Essentially, constructions on geological materials. And we know these materials are heterogeneous. And also, interestingly, many of these structures are linear structure. By linear structure, I mean like railway spanning a long distance and grazing different geological terrain that displays different engineering properties and behavior that needs to be properly understood for the design of resilient, stable structure of the industry and the worldwide society. So we consider road rails for transportation of and distribution of oil and gas product, and they involve embankment and construction of embankment and cutting, pipelines, overland pipeline and subsea pipelines, buried pipelines, building facilities, and then storage facility. And then offshore, you have the oil production platforms, and also near shore, you have the landing jetties and the other near shore infrastructure. So the technical issues involved in these structures are essentially stresses that are acting on the soil, and also deformation in terms of a volume mass change of the behavior of the soil, and then flow of fluids in the soil, how they come to affect the engineering properties of the soil, and then the structure that is built on or with this geological material. Climate change itself, of course, is a general topic that is a very familiar one. The interclimate panel on climate change, both international, the global body, who have used scientific data to suggest that the world temperature is rising, and also characterized by irregular pattern of rainfall. High storms of short duration, long storm of short duration. The pattern is global, but they also recognizes that there is going to be a regional differences. But whatever the case, there is a change in the status quo of the world, the Earth's atmosphere. Impact on the civil infrastructure has been recognized, and of course, is due to the inherent exposure of these structures to the climate. Effect on the founding materials using the construction, especially soil, is a major concern. There's also impact on steel members and concrete members, but we are focusing today geotechnically on the soil aspect of things. So sustainable solution requires a good understanding of the underpinning processes. It's not just enough to recognize the risk, but how do we uncouple the parameters, the drivers within the process that underpin this risk. So that's what we'll be focusing on today. So let's look at climate impact on onshore geotechnical structures. Here we are, several problems with soil failure, ground movement, subsidence, failure of slopes that is conveying the rail track, roadway, motorway, highway, where many of these volatile materials are being distributed. Settlement of the ground upon failure of the bearing soil of the storage facility. And you could see all kinds of issues here, boggling of the pipeline upon landslides, failure issue concerning the soil. And then differential settlement, of course, we'll commonly expect that due to the heterogeneity of the soil materials. And if despite construction method, we'll have to suffer these both by dynamic and static load and also long-term usage. So these are some of the major issues that affect the smooth operation, production capacity, and sustainable energy supply within this industry, as far as their structures, supporting structure, handling of facilities are founded on. So if these things is happening right now, then what would you expect when there is a greater climate extreme events? We will definitely expect that this situation will be exacerbated, increasing frequency, and therefore an urgent need and steps has to be taken to address this, as it is being done everywhere in the world. Again, we look at the climate impact on offshore technical structure. I will just graze this a little bit because this is not the main focus, even though there is also aspect of offshore techniques that we expect to be affected by climate impact. So essentially, loads are transferred from the superstructure of the oil rigs and platforms to the soil underneath the mudline. That's the seabed. And soil engineering properties, the shear strength of the seabed, the stiffness, compressibility governs the type and of foundation. But you can see from the diagram, the advances in production platform have gone to deeper and deeper and deeper level on the sea, requiring more advanced design. And as the shift into deeper sea level, you will also expect that there is going to be much more environmental energy that's going to be impacted on the structure. How much more extreme events like high winds, high waves, and current operating in this environment, how they would affect the gravity-based structures, the skirted, the pile jacket, the suction casing types of foundations. So still on climate impact on offshore geotechnical structures in perspective, what we're seeing there, that is going to a transfer of load, differential loads, the self-weights of the superstructure, the rig itself, but much more is the wind, the wave, and the current forces, creating vertical, horizontal, and moment load on the offshore foundation as a sector there. And therefore, it is important that understanding of the behavior of the subsea bed be properly analyzed and to accommodate this additional environmental loads that is going to be created by high winds, like the hurricanes. Is already ravaging many advanced countries like in the US and Canada and the North Sea in the United Kingdom, are really suffering a lot, spending so much money, especially on the existing structure. And therefore, to the developing clime, it is a huge, huge opportunity to be able to adapt to these things and therefore design structure facing the future. And so we begin to have, we would expect, this was a suspected foundation failure in the North Sea here, where UK is operating their major oil field. And so there has also been a documented evidence of subsidence in the sea, either due to soft seabed settlement and sliding bearing and bearing capacity failure. So these events are expected to increase in frequency as climate change continue to unfold. Let's look at another scenario, another major thing that affects offshore geotechnical foundation is what they call scoring or turbulent wake. Essentially the movement of current around the piles or the footings of the subsea structure, scoring and eroding sediment away from the base of the foundation, capable of causing displacement load or ultimate failure, bearing capacity failure, or frictional failure of the design structure. And so it calls for a focus on how this thing has to be mitigated, adapted or mitigated or built for future resilience. So coming to geotechnical, what's the role of soil mechanics? This seems to be apparently the very bedrock of geotechnical practice. It deals essentially with the engineering properties and utilization of soil for construction purposes, both as foundation and construction material, including rocks. Soil mechanics provides the theoretical basis for geotechnical analysis. And then it has provided so many solutions. The classical soil mechanics provides solutions, including load-bearing capacity, settlement issue, consolidation rate, slope stability, support for excavation, tunneling, and what have you. Yet there is still some limitations in the practice. That has to do mostly with moisture condition in the soil, and that forms a major boundary that subdivides subdivides soil mechanics. So let's look at it. So you have division of element of soil mechanics. So you have, I put a diagram here. Essentially, the unsaturated soil mechanics. Okay, let me go back one slide. One slide. Yeah. So I did say that the soil moisture in moisture in the condition of the soil affects the create the boundary for analysis involved in soil mechanics, and therefore is subdivision. So you have moisture in different zones. The unsaturated zone, where the soil is filled with soil, is a three-phase zone filled with air, water, and the solid itself. And then the capillary zone just above that table, which in most cases is also counted as part of the vadose zone. And then the saturated zone, where you have the pores of the soil completely filled with water. The classical soil mechanics dwell mostly with the saturated zone, and therefore we now come to have what they call saturated soil mechanics, where the ZAC is a big name there, and the continuum theory, effective stress, combined with power treasure on this basic equation here. That was simple enough. But where, if you look on the right-hand side, is it right on the screen? The soil is filled with part of it is filled with water and air. You have a situation where the soil is partially saturated, and therefore we come to have this class of soil mechanics practice called unsaturated soil mechanics, and is mostly defined by the air in the pores. And as you see in the equation there, introducing a set variable of air and water pressure, pore water pressure changes is a game changer in the behavior of soils that are above the water table, that's the vadose zone, right? And so we normally in practice assume that the air pressure is zero. So if you take that out, you see that what is left is a negative water pressure, which is generally in practice called suction. In the suction, if you see on the upper diagram there, you see effect of capillary pool due to the air and surface tension. Yes, essentially this increases the infective stress and seem to create a stability of in the soil as the particles are drawn together by capillarity. And therefore, these particular elements of soil called suction, negative pore water pressure, now becomes the central driving or game changer, we'll call it, in the dynamics of soil response to environmental load. So the key fact from what we have said is that classical soil mechanic formulation mainly addresses soil that are either dry or saturated within the phractic zone, while soil above the water table, the vadose zone, are unsaturated, and they inherently, they customarily, traditionally exhibit negative pore water pressure, right? And then majority, here is a fact now, majority of the earth structures, land-based structure, offshore geotechnical, are founded within this vadose zone, unsaturated zone. And the unsteady behavior accounts for a vast majority of the environmental problem associated with earth structure. Therefore, you can agree with me that unsaturated soil mechanics framework is the basis to address the basis of analytics to addressing or coming to the kind of design criteria necessary to address climate change. So understanding the principle of unsaturated soil mechanics is crucial, therefore, for solution to climate impact on geotechnical structure. It's a relatively new branch of soil mechanics practice, and many practitioners have been a bit dodgy from it because they feel because of the costs and the expertise required to implement most of the soil unsaturated soil mechanics analysis, but it has come to stay. It has come to stay. The world players have recognized that experience and analytics of unsaturated soil mechanics need to be distributed worldwide for effective management of climate change issue. So let's look at a typical geotechnical infrastructure corridor and see what are the dynamics of unsaturated soil. So you eventually have rainfall from the atmosphere, soil-atmosphere interaction, bringing in water into the soil, infiltration, and at the same time, during high temperature sunshine, you also have evaporation and transpiration. Evaporation from the soil, direct evaporation from the soil, and transpiration from the plant. So you have a combined evapotranspiration that is taking moisture out of the soil. And what is the essential effect, in summary, to these processes? There is a change, an unsteady change of stress state because of the negative water pressure. So evaporation, moisture loss create, loss in suction, increases suction by increasing effective stress in the soil. That creates stability, while rainfall water infiltration increases the pore water pressure. And you can imagine it seems like expansive play. That is a low lot of forces for instability. So pore water pressure in the soil as it relates to climate change impact, rainfall and precipitation and evapotranspiration is crucial in asset integrity management. And so we are getting a direction now towards climate impact management strategy. In climate management, we talk about mitigation. That essentially focuses on controlling emission of greenhouse gases. Well, in geotechnical engineering, there are a few issues there that has to do with carbon storage in geological substructures like coal beds in oil field, but there's also a risk of long-term leakages. So, but the major field focus of geotechnical engineers towards supporting the strategy of management of climate change impact is on adaptation, which is essentially trying to reduce the impact or resilience infrastructure. So on that note, we are trying to reduce designing to reduce vulnerability of the structure by resigning to higher standard to withstand future changes, or we are trying to avoid exposure, which is a dicey one. It's quite a dodgy one, building in a less risky location. Where is a less risky location? As far as atmosphere interaction is concerned, and then also there's an increasing adaptability, which is designing to accommodate changes, future changes, incremental changes in the climate. So this is what we're looking at, analytics based on unsaturated soil mechanics principle. So understanding the processes is important. The IPCC have recognized that the first step towards effective management strategy is to understand and uncouple the processes underpinning the climate change. Not just talk about it, yeah, we know rainfall can cause erosion. Yeah, how does the erosion really as a process work within the soil in this perspective of geotechnics that affect the structure? So you're looking at those processes that control pore water pressure within the near surface soil of the engineered structure, and those processes that control permeability of water also within this area. So you talk about suction changes, evapotranspiration flux, rainfall intensity, duration, humidity, desiccation cracking, all manners of field observation and laboratory experiment. And here it is. Unsaturated soil analytics requires specialized equipment and kits to be able to go. What I'm showing here is one of the jobs that we did in this respect. You can see the loads of environmental data that had to be taken into consideration. How humidity is changing with volume of cracking on the ground, how suction is changing with volume of water in the soil, how volume of water and suction changes is corresponding with the amount of evapotranspiration and the amount of rainfall and the matches. That's why we draw this line. The same thing here, relative humidity and suction changes, evapotranspiration and rainfall changes. This is just a tip of the iceberg to show you the complex data that we require in order to be able to create a analytical managerial framework to assess vulnerability, to predict the condition, and then set a critical threshold. Okay, when this stress-free threshold is exceeded, definitely I'm going to expect a failure in my structure, and therefore that gives an opportunity, ample opportunity for intervention, or what could be called planned management. Planned management have always been known to save costs compared to ultimate failure, allowing the ground or the structure to fail, and then now go to now repair or maintain. And so the direction is towards being able to anticipate sensitivity of the structure, being able to predict the small strain that is happening due to environmental load, and then make an intervention. We see not analytical. So field for unsaturated soil, a low lot of kits are required. Environmental control in the laboratory, high capacity tensiometer to measure suction, soil moisture probe, and then soil water characteristics, or what we call soil retention curve, which tells us a whole lot of story and generate a whole lot of unsaturated soil parameters required in our modeling and arriving at the best strategic solution for resilience design. So in some of the work we've done also, you find out that we have a model, a full-scale environment, fully instrumented for real-time pore water measurement, volumetric water measurement, the soil and the changes across the slope. We're using this as a model of like highway subbase, pipeline routes, rail track subbase, slope, and cuttings of transport corridor, generally soil behavior, And we have robust laboratory experimentals being able to climate control things and being able to sense what's going on in the soil. We have moisture probes here and a lot of data logging, continuous data logging. So it's a massive, massive analytical that require good experience and grounded in unsaturated soil mechanics. And then the soil water characteristics curve, which is able to uncouple for us all the necessary required geotechnical parameters from a saturated soil point of view to do our analytical. So what are we trying to do exactly in unsaturated soil mechanics in practice? Let's look at some of the methods that are in place that are useful in effectively controlling, reducing pore water pressure and increasing effective stress. Essentially, we are talking about permeability control and strength improvement methods. So chemical stabilization, which acts as hydraulic barriers, and then but there's an issue here. There is also, as part of geotechnical engineers' effort to mitigate global warming by carbon capture, there is a moving away from the use of carbon-based hydraulic barriers like lime, hydrated limes, and Portland cements to a more lab-tested chemical elements, or to reduce carbon emission or carbon footprint. Mechanical stabilization is a very familiar one, right from the onset of compaction machine in the 50s, which eventually reduces the pore spaces and increases density of the soil. By so doing, in the relationship that we saw between pore water pressure and effective normal stress, you see that the soil is strengthened. And then also the use of synthetics, geosynthetics like polymers for tension control, which is normally casted over. Let's look at some of them here. So that's the process going on there. Soil stabilization by lime, which we are trying to go away from, and use a more environmental friendly carbon, less carbon or low carbon product. And then the geosynthetic material, the polymers, and then the compactions, which essentially densify the soil. And what it does here is that it also, compaction essentially controls drainage in the soil. There is a greater movement of moisture within the loosely compacted soil. In the UK and most part of Europe, most of the geotechnical infrastructure that were built in the 18th century are the one issuing the greatest problem today because of climate change, because there was no compaction specification, no compaction method then. And so many of them were placed by end tipping and therefore result in a loosely compacted engineered fields and very prone to deformation. So that was on soil stabilization techniques. And then another aspect of application of unsaturated soil mechanics is in capillary barriers, where essentially we are creating a contrast in hydraulic properties of the soil, where the finer soil is on top, which is mostly used in slope stability, in highway subgrade, where suction is retained to robustly increase the resilient modulus of the road subgrade. And so by this kind of systematic configuration during construction, you're able to control drainage, and then you're able to effectively also control retention of suction, which benefits stability and the stability of the structures, oil and gas facility founded on them landward. Well, we've come to this side of things. So let's just see what we can summarize here. What we're eventually saying here is that climate impact on onshore oil and gas geotechnical structures, they relate to the dynamic behavior of the near surface soil materials in response to climate-driven processes, hydrometeorological. So it's not just the physical flooding, okay? Flooding is like a physical direct impact. We are talking about process-based, on this long life assets, long life linear asset, okay? So they are creeping, and therefore they need a very good background of analytics to be able to uncouple, predict, and then control for the effective management. So unsaturated mechanics provide this framework to assess vulnerability, predict condition, and then set threshold to support the land-based infrastructure resilience. And then they require specialized kit tools, both laboratory and then institute testing and measurement, field measurement, and then remote sensing information because of the spatial benefit. And then on the offshore side of things, the foundation necessarily need to accommodate incremental load changes, which is going to be robust. Yes, the the offshore side of things have always operated in a very extreme condition and stretched engineering technology, but they have not been without incidents or environmental impacted failures. And so it is still appropriate to be able to increase this design criteria that will adequately accommodate the incremental load changes due to extreme climate events to be able to create stability of the oil production platform and the nearshore landing jetties and loading jetties. Overall, we generally understand that the oil and gas industry's risks as emphasis on hazard management had been mostly based on the risk side of things. But now there necessarily need to be a shift in the paradigm, a shift from risk to resilience informed decision. And this can never be without a proper process data, research-based data analyticals, which is in this case require a robust experience in the mechanics of soil behavior. And then also seeking, the industry captain need to now start seeking for scientific adaptation procedures rather than focusing mainly on emission. I think they are about the highest carbon emission. So I can understand, appreciate why they're emphasizing so much on that. But now, because of this creeping nature of environmental load, I think also that has to be accommodated in their innovative risk-based decision. Ultimately, also, there is a huge opportunity for investment, for researches and practices in an effort to protect civil structures that are supporting oil and gas handling in the industry worldwide. So I want to appreciate, we've put together a lot of stuff you have been involved of recently, Transportation Africa. We're trying to export this advanced knowledge in trying to create resilient and sustainable project infrastructure in Africa, being as a virgin area. Unlike in Europe, in America, where the built environment is already saturated and they are facing the other task of maintenance and management against climate change. I actually belong to the Geotechnical and Structural Research Group of Newcastle University. And also I'm using the biological and engineering impact of climate change, bionics facility, that embalmment that you saw there. And a lot of data have been drawn from the practices of Marine, Netherlands, and Great Britain. And I belong to a small African interest group called Sub-Saharan African Interest Development, essentially trying to export back advanced knowledge. I hope I don't have any white friend here anyway, but forgive me. And I appreciate the host, NAPE, UYO Calabar chapter. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Eminue. And as you can see, this was quite rich in content. And I believe that everyone that participated learned very well. I believe I'm being heard, please. Am I being heard?
Yeah, you are heard. You are heard. You are heard.
Okay, thank you very much. And before we continue, I want to please recognize some of our executive members that came into the meeting while the presentation was going on. I'd like to recognize our former president, Mr. Alex Taka, and then also the former deputy president, I guess, Mr. John Bosco. And then also, especially, I want to recognize the coordinator or the chairman of the UAP, Dr. Emmanuel Madrebu, and then also our EIC, editor-in-chief of NAPE Bulletin, an excellent editor-in-chief, Dr. Chris Jackson, and also our former UAP chairman, Dr. Adelola Adesida. I think I saw him. And of course, especially, we want to also again recognize our publicity secretary, Mrs. Tubosun Afolayan. Thank you so much for your hard work. And also our president, she's been here all the time for us, Mrs. Patricia Ochubu, and our PE, always supportive, Dr. James. So thank you very much, everyone, for what you've done and everything you've done. At this time, we'd like to take questions and comments. I would like our technical man in NAPE to help to unmute those that would probably want to give a comment or something, but otherwise I would ask that you just type in your questions in the chat, then I'll read them out for him to respond. Again, thank you very much. This is the time for questions and answers and comments.
Hello, Dr. Harry.
Yeah.
Dr. Harry. Hello, Dr. Harry.
I can hear you.
Oh, yeah. So I want to just add that, well, even other questions could also be forwarded in due course. It will still, it can still be also answered. Yeah. For people here today or people that will be watching. I understand you have a Facebook group. Yeah. So any other question that may want to come in view of this can always be forwarded also, apart from this short time for a
Okay, please.
comment.
So if you can send a chat, a comment in the chat, I will read it out for everyone to see. I have one here from John Bosco Nkodubi. The audio of my laptop malfunctioned and I couldn't capture this wonderful presentation. It will please me to receive the copy to my email. So I appreciate you, Dr. Oboho, if you're able to share this presentation so that we can send them to those that are interested. Thank you.
Yes, yes, sure. Yeah, thank you.
And we also have a raised hand here from P. Please, can you unmute the P? He wants to make a comment, please.
Hello, thank you very much, Dr. Oboho. Very enlightening and worthwhile discussion. I am aware that in times gone by, and I know they still do it today, but when we look at the older infrastructure, particularly in the marine environments, we know that a lot of geotechnical studies are usually carried out before installations are made.
Yeah.
Now, my question would be, from your experience and with what other people are doing around the world, how long do you think, or what would be the frequency of monitoring these environments to be sure that these things have integrity and are stable, instead of waiting until there is a failure or a collapse of the infrastructure, particularly in the marine environment with rigs and platforms that were installed, say, 10, 15, 30 years ago? What would be the
Approach,
frequency of
yeah,
monitoring
frequency, yes, yeah.
to be sure that we don't get these failures, from your experience? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. James. That's very, very interesting. In fact, I didn't make emphasis on that enough. And in line with the analytical procedure of unsaturated soil, which focuses on trying to pick up vulnerability, predict the behavior in time and space of these long life assets. The practice involve real-time monitoring. There is no time gap for it, because that short time gap that has been left out can be the game changer in terms of the stability of that structure. So the offshore side of it, yes, traditionally, a lot of the things have never been done. And in the offshore side of things, of course, this is always very robust. The offshore also have that good news of always operating in a very extreme design scenario and worst case scenario. But now is the time that we now need what we call real-time data, which can only be accomplished by installation, what we call instrumented monitoring. Both on the onshore side and the offshore side, instrumented monitoring that is consistently giving you time-lapse data on the informed soil parameters that enables you to analyze the strength changes are the way to go. As you saw in that, for instance, on the land base, I just want to show you something. I am aware of a lot of sensors that are used in the offshore side of things for trying to determine and analyze the settlement behavior and the scoring around the foundation, the base of the foundation. But on the land side, for instance, you have this kind of situation where you have fully instrumented and embedded. In fact, some of these instruments, we call it post-installation, post-construction monitoring. It goes on to a large extent, to a satisfactory extent, that you can look back at the data and say, yeah, I think for this 10 years period, this structure had under extreme weather behaved reasonably satisfactory according to design. So long-term monitoring is a way to go, and instrumental one is the innovation in the current practice around about the world.
Thank you very much. Dr. Bo, there's another question here from Sheung Philip. Says, thank you for the presentation, Dr. Bo. Perhaps you can comment on the role of geotechnics in the energy transition from oil and gas to renewables, especially offshore wind. Seeing that you are in the thick of things by your present location and practice in the UK, Europe, and North Sea. Yeah,
I was in France a few days ago. I just came in from France to come and honor this invitation candidate to come back home, use some of my facility. So one of the industry captain made a statement. I was very surprised. Well, there are a lot of effort and emphasis and media coverage on a shift from fossil-based energy to other conventional energy source for greener environment. But as far as it's concerned, oil and gas remains until further notice. And so, well, in the geotechnical side of things, actually, what we are doing presently is mostly trying to do a little bit. We don't really emit so much of greenhouse gases, but we, because of our background, understand knowledge of geology, the geotechnical engineers are really involved in carbon storage, in trying to support the design of a safe design of underground storage facilities for carbon capturing and carbon storage in geological stratas and coal beds and oil, just to be able to support the reduction of carbon emission in the first instance. Yes.
Well, thank you very much. Another question here from Emmanuel Nwanya. Good morning, good day, everyone, and all protocols observed. My question goes thus: does climate change affect subsea drilling? In a situation that climate change, does it affect subsea drilling? Is there a way marine climate or environmental conditions can be isolated from atmospheric climate changes?
Oh, yeah, as I mentioned briefly during the technical stage presentation, the issue with climate change and offshore geotechnics primarily relies on effect of high waves and high winds and effect of high current that is going to be generated by extreme climate events like high storms and hurricanes that are going to be more frequent, and this generally increases what we call environmental load, vertical, horizontal, and moment. Not only on oil and gas infrastructure, but even including, the wind farms are also as a way of shifting the paradigm towards greener energy source. The wind farms are getting robust in the marine environment, and so the issue has to do with those increased energy. Environmental energy from wind, wave, and current to contend with. It is quite acknowledged that the offshore side of things had, of course, always been that they operate in a very turbulent environment right from time. Had always included a very robust design criteria for stability of their structure. But still, they are still suffered, as we have known in history and recent time. Hurricanes, Katrina, damages caused to the American oil installations, and even here in UK also the North Sea. And so you cannot really isolate it, but for drilling, not directly. Drilling is entirely a different process, but we are talking about a structure that have been anchored on the seabed. The seabed, the high current creating turbulence that affects coring, eroding the sediment around the base of the piers and gravity basements, which can lead to load displacement. So that's the context generally. That's the context.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah.
No.
Are there still questions?
Please. Yes.
Okay, go on.
Good afternoon, Doc. My name is Derek Odundri. I am a PhD candidate at the University of Southampton, National Oceanographic Center, and I'm currently doing a PhD on carbon capture and storage.
Good.
My question is, what's the role or impact on geotectonics on carbon capture and storage reservoirs? Because we are kind of more interested in rock mechanics in greater depths, and from your presentation, it has dwelled more on soil mechanics. And I would want to know where would geotectonics play in probably assessing the integrities of subsurface reservoirs for CO2 storage?
Well, the tectonic side of things really, as far as climate change is concerned, is not directly, even though it's also related, not directly, but it's just as part of the things that are affecting the stability of the subsea. But talking about the carbon capturing, and which focuses on storing this captured carbon in underground geological media, like I did mention, very fantastic idea, very wonderful, innovative towards this sustainable management of climate change impact. But like I mentioned, there is that fear, there is that reservation, which now borders on what you are talking about, the geotectonics, in terms of its mechanical effect in creating the pathway for leakages of this already stored carbon, which will not create another problem entirely. So it's not, but it boils down. I've attended a program about even not carbon storage, but nuclear storage, nuclear waste storage in deep geological facility. Even other technical people and professionals they don't seem to be very satisfied that that's the way we should go. We don't want to unsettle other more damaging forces of the earth in trying to solve one from the atmosphere, essentially. So it's a very dicey thing. So if our research, I want to believe, will have a good direction. Either we should go ahead with that kind of idea, or we shouldn't be. As expected, the research results should be able to profile.
All right, thank you very much. We will not be able to take more questions or comments, but you can reach Dr. Oboho on his email. Dr. Oboho, can you share your email so that in case they have comments or questions, further questions, they can reach you? You can just put on the chat, and then I'm sure that people would like to reach you. And then thank you very much, everyone, for coming for this very important technical session. We've come to the end, and I would like to invite the chairman for his last comment. Esteemed PE, Dr. James Edet, before we close. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Harry. Just to say that we appreciate Dr. Oboho, Eminue very much for this brilliant presentation. And also to say that the NAPE International Conference and Exhibition is coming up in November, very soon. And we are expecting a lot of participation. This conference is going to be basically physical and virtual, especially for those who will be unable to make it to Lagos, Nigeria, to attend virtually. The information can be gotten from the Secretariat, and I'm sure Tumbosun Afolayan and her team are doing a lot to publicize this conference, and we will be expecting excellent participation, and we hope that we get a lot of presentations and insights like the one Dr. Oboho has just given us, in order to allow us learn and to grow NAPE from strength to strength. Let me thank you all for having been here with us, and especially for having our eminent and erudite president, Mrs. Patricia Ochobu, at the helm. Let me also thank IPP for always finding time to be with us in our continuing education programs. And I am sure that with all your help and participation, we'll be able to make the forthcoming NAPE conference and exhibition a great one. Thank you, everybody, for being able to attend this continuing education program. And what can I say? Enjoy the rest of the weekend, I would say, and try to assimilate some of these information that you have received today. And please don't forget, your questions to the presenter can always be sent after now, because it will help to enrich the program and the knowledge that we get from this kind of presentations. Thank you very much, Uyo Calabar chapter. I think this is a great one. And Dr. Akere, kudos to you and your team.
Thank you.
Abraham, Uyo. Thank you very much, everybody. The background, Tunde, I can see you there.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Yes. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Normally, we would like a president to close the meeting for us. So I'd like to ask the Public Secretary, esteemed Mrs. Wilson, if she has additional announcements before the president closes us. Mrs. Patricia. Mrs. Tobuson, please.
Okay, while we wait for Tumboson to come up, I would like to say that the meeting is being Zoomed, as we can see, and it's also online. We can find it on our YouTube and Facebook pages. It is streamed online. We are having our live streaming session with this meeting, and you can always go back after this meeting to watch it online. Just search for NAPE Nigeria in YouTube or Facebook. You will see our stream programs. This is also part of it. You can go there and watch it anytime. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tunde. Mrs. Tobuson, is she around? Is she still there? Okay, all right. I think on this note, we'd like to invite the president to close us formally. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much once again, Dr. Oboho. That was a scintillating and highly educative talk. And what I like about it is that it opens up the apertures of our minds. So we start to imagine and think of what we can do, even as we are entering this energy transition. Now, for every NAPE member who is on this call, our charge to you as this year's ESCO is that we must do all we can to enrich your lives and to improve your chances as practicing professionals. So to that end, please be aware that we have a course coming up August 19 and 20th, I believe. But it's called Resource Economics. It is highly discounted for every NAPE member. This cost typically, we would charge like 300,000 Naira if we were doing it physically. And if we were doing it virtually, we would charge between 80 and 100,000 Naira. But we realize that we need to add value to your lives. We need to give you something for your membership. And we have discounted it to 20,000 Naira for NAPE members and 5,000 Naira for students. I would encourage you all to take advantage of that provision, and you will be really glad that you did. I can assure you that I, Patricia, am going to pay for myself to attend this course. And if I have to take vacation time, I'm going to do it, because the topic is resource economics. So we are talking oil and gas, but the money in your hand is also resource. Your time is also resource. A lot of things around you are resource. So this is one of the courses I think that if you do not buy any course this year, this is one you can use to learn, relearn, and unlearn the things you need to unlearn, because we are entered a new world and we just have to adapt. Charles Darwin has said it, that the species that does not adapt would definitely go extinct, and that will not be one, that will not be for us, because we know the science behind all this. And I really want to appreciate all the fellows. I saw KK Kanu, I saw IPP Alex Saka, I saw Vicky Kimalo, and a bunch of others. Thank you very much for your continuous unflinching support for NAPE. Also, all the NAPE ESCO, I shall not name you all, but I see a full slate here. More than 50% of the ESCOs are on this call, and the people who are not able to actually sent in their excuses. So NAPE ESCO, I toilet for you guys, you are doing very well. And of course, to your Calabar chapter, I congratulate you on finding the resource person and pulling this crowd. And as you go into next month, I know you have other programs lined up. I think one of the programs I would like to talk about is that on August 12th at 5 p.m., between 5 p.m. and 7 p.m., we are going to be having an evening of tributes in honor of the late Professor S.W. Peters. Please visit all our social media handles to get the details. We feel that we have to honor our erudite scholar and Arrett Adams Award recipient. So on this note, I bid you all a good day. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your contribution. Thank you for the passion. Thank you for all the questions. I really enjoyed this talk. And thank you, NAPE, for making it available on all our social media handles so we can go back and listen to it over and over again. God bless you all and have a great weekend.
All right. Thank you so much, Madam President. We're grateful. And thank you, everyone. Dr. Kara, please.
Sir, thank you. What else will I say? I key into what the president has just rounded up. God will bless everyone. I thank you. I thank the presenter. I thank the president and the president-elect and all members of EXCO here present. God will bless them all. Thank you.
Have a wonderful day, and God bless everyone. God bless NAPE. God bless.
Thank you, our coordinator. God bless you.
Thank you
very
Dr.
much
Kara, for the opportunity. Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Oboho, Eminue. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Yeah.
Enjoy
Thank
the
you very
weekend.
much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Ekere, well done. Congrats.
The dog.